We realized when we had all the transports loaded with Marines and Army that there was going to be a landing in some of the islands in the South Pacific, which is the Solomon Islands. In the Solomon Islands, all the islands were controlled by the Japanese at that time. And Guadalcanal and Tulagi were the first islands that were landed. And we were more or less a supporting group to fire while the landings were being completed. And that's when we lost our number one turret when it blew up. It had a hang fire. And
what's a hang fire?
A hang fire is when the gun would not fire. It had it's what they call a oh gosh.
Sounds like maybe the shell doesn't detonate when it's in the barrel.
Well, it was a hang fire and a barrel of the gun, and instead of manually kicking it out and hitting the primer cap to make it explode, it just didn't do that. It was done automatically, but it didn't have time to do it, and it exploded right in the gun barrel. It's a different situation. It's called different. It wasn't just a hang fire. There's another word for it actually. But anyway, it was an overheated barrel, and it exploded right in the gun chamber. And we lost 7 guys in the turret, and 6 others were wounded pretty bad.
So where were you at when that happened? Like, what was there? All of a sudden, something wrong that you realized, and you're like,
that was in number 1 turret. I was in number 7, and I was a trainer on number 7. That's where I get all my information from plot, which gets the targets, and then I use an automatic trainer. I have to match pointers, and then it trains the turret and moves it from side to side, about 275 degrees, and it depends on what target they're after. And then the pointer, he's the guy that does the elevation of the guns. And that's where we had trouble with the number 1 turret when it blew up. I was in number 7, so we're still in action. Everybody's got phones, and they get the orders from the gunnery officers. And plot, which is down in the bottom of the ship, it's from like sonar. They have the targets, and they knew where every unit is, every target is, and then you get your dials right in front of you, and you match your pointers according to the plot.
Mm-hmm.
And then that they take care of moving the guns automatically then.
So was the beach landing hostile for the Marines?
It was pretty hostile. They got a lot of fire from the Japanese on the island, and the border and all that kind of ammunition that they were using.
So your job was to kind of help that bombardment, kind of soften that landing.
We were trying to hit the targets where they had all that availability. We were trying to knock them out before they could damage our landings of the troops.
What did they move you guys into next? I know you said that there was some engagements between the Japanese Navy and the U.S. Navy shortly thereafter.
Yeah, that was that night. There was the battle. It was called the Battle of Savo Island. That's when the surface engagements with Japanese battleships and Japanese cruisers. They had an engagement with 4 of our heavy cruisers, the Quincy Vincennes, the Astoria, and the Australian cruiser Canberra. And we lost all 4 of those cruisers. And the San Juan, which I was on, went to the picket line to be with the transports to protect them. And so we weren't in on that battle of the Savo Island. We were just, we weren't in the surface engagement at that time. And of course, our guns were only 5-inch 38 guns. If we had 6-inch or 8-inch, we could have more or less helped out a little bit. But we were too small. Our gun power was not large enough to be in a surface engagement.
Okay, so you guys weren't necessarily out there. You had more of a support role to bombarding and stuff like that.
Our situation was because we were an anti-aircraft cruiser. We were a light cruiser. and it all depends on what the action is, on why you were there or why you were not there. Most of our action was with aircraft when we had air bombardment, when we had air attacks.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we didn't get in on the surface engagements.
So
we were lucky in that respect.
So after the Battle of
Savo Island.
Savo Island, what were some of the events that you can recall happened after that? What or anything that changed? Or
well, the next morning we found out that we had a couple cruisers and destroyers that were damaged real bad, and they had to save all of the personnel that were on those ships and get them off, and then we torpedoed the ships because they were out of action anyway, and they couldn't be saved. So we had to sink our own ships because they were too badly damaged. Well, it was the next morning, and things had quieted down a little bit, but the ships were still damaged so bad that they couldn't be of any more use. And that's why they had to be damaged by our own gunfire and more torpedoes.
did you guys have torpedoes on?
Yeah, we had 8 torpedoes on our ship.
So how did torpedoing work? What did the process go to launch a torpedo, and what was a torpedo designed to do?
Well, that's mostly for surface engagement for a larger cruiser, like a Japanese cruiser. And if you get a target, then the torpedo men on board ship are the ones that do the work at fire the torpedoes. We had 8 torpedoes, 4 on the starboard side and 4 on the port side. But we didn't use them very often because we were, just like I say, we were an anti-aircraft cruiser. We weren't. They were just for spot checks on anything. We didn't do much with the firing of torpedoes on heavy cruisers or anything.
What were some of the next events that happened?
Well, after they landed on Guadalcanal, and all the troops were on there that were going to be participating in the land action, they had to take care of that themselves because the ships had to move out. They couldn't just lay around there because you had other task forces, Japanese task forces, that could come in and engage you in a surface engagement. Because when you land the troops take care of what they have to take care of. Mm-hmm. You don't have any more to do with the troops that are landed. And after all the troops are off the transports, there's no reason for you to be there because you can't do anything on land. You had to move out.
And so, after you guys moved out of the Guadalcanal, Tulagi, where did you guys move to next?
Well, we hit Guadalcanal and then Tulagi, and then we went back to our home port, which was in Espiritu Santos, in the Fiji Islands, and stayed there until such action was needed in another area.
And then you wait for your next orders.
Yeah.
What did you guys move into next? Do you recall where you guys moved to after that?
Oh gosh, I don't know. We went to Tarawa, but we spent most of our time in all the small islands out there where there were Japanese on the islands, and where they were making landings.
Mm-hmm. So Tarawa was
Tarawa. We lost 2,400 men in one day. In Palau, they lost 5,000 in one day. That's Marines and Army. It was on the land. The Japanese were well prepared. They had underground dungeons and places where they could get underneath and they wouldn't be exposed.
So you guys bombarded them, just fired away.
Yeah, when they made the landings. Yeah, that kept the gang that was making the landing. That helped protect them.
And so, when you guys were doing these landings, did you guys ever come under fire from like Japanese Zeros or?
Well, we had at that time there was always a Japanese task force not too far away, and they'd send planes, off the carriers, mm-hmm. and that interrupt our operations that way.
Okay. So, do you recall any specific events where you guys were maybe firing, and then all of a sudden, Japanese are coming in, and then?
Yeah. Well, the Battle of Santa Cruz. We had the South Dakota was a big battleship, and we had a lot of tin cans destroyers and a couple other cruisers. But we were having air attacks, and we were firing all the time, and so were the other ships too. The other ships were firing, and that's when we took a one bomb hit. We were trying to zigzag and get away from the air attacks.
So tell us about this bomb hit.
Well, as just like I say, we had a good skipper. We had a good group of guys that could control the ship, and they just zigzag. When they did an air attack, we had a couple of kamikazes, and in order to get away from them, they had to do a lot of zigzagging. And when you do that, you make a hard right. The ship is leaning, and when the bomb come in, it hit not on the main deck, but on the side of the ship. It went through there and damaged our rudder. And but you had to fire away at the air attacks. That's all you could do. You didn't have any other choice.
So that was pretty intense.
The largest battle we had, considered the largest air attack, was the Battle of Santa Cruz, and that was right outside of, not too far away from Tarawa and Tulagi and Guadalcanal.
So in Santa Cruz, when that bomb hit and it detonated, did you guys endure any casualties?
We had flooded compartments, and a few guys in the chief's quarters were hurt, but slightly, because it didn't explode on board in the ship. It went through the side of the ship and exploded underneath, and damaged the rudder and put a big hole in the side of the ship.
So you guys got pretty lucky then, it sounds like.
Yeah, we were lucky, actually. The rest of the ship, if that would have hit a direct hit on any of our guns or anything like that, it would have gone down in the magazines and exploded.
Wow. So you guys obviously had to go get some repairs done.
Well, yeah, we went to Sydney, Australia for repairs.
Okay.
It was temporary repairs.
So how long were you guys in Sydney for those repairs?
We were in Sydney, Australia for 14 days.
And so did you guys
when we went into Sydney, we were followed in by a two-man submarine. And they had nets entering. When you get to the harbor, they had nets drawn across the one entrance into the harbor. And we picked it up on sonar and dropped depth charges and got the submarine with depth charges before they got in the harbor. They followed us in.
An enemy?
Yeah, entered sub, two-man submarine. They were a small sub. They had them just parked outside, where they could be handy for them to get any kind of a ship that was coming in the harbor.
Wow. So the depth charge, I assume.
The depth charges took care of them. Yeah.
Wow.
See, we had in the fantail we had 6 500-pound depth charges, and on the starboard side and the port side, close to those depth charges on the stern, they could throw a pattern. If they pick up a submarine by sonar, these Y guns were fired from the bridge, and they'd fire the Y gun on each side and drop a 600-pounder on the stern, and when that would go down and they were set to explode at a certain time, it would break the seams in the submarine, and split the seams, and then they'd either sink there or they'd come to the surface. Most of the times they sunk them right there. They'd have a whole loss of life of a submarine. But that was when they had when we'd put a pattern of depth charges.
Yeah.
You'd put them out there, and then when it explodes, it breaks the seams in the submarine, it splits the seams in them, and then they sink.
So when those depth charges go off, do you see anything up where you guys are at? Do you see the water?
There's a lot of water spouts going to come up. It was pretty well charged, And one night they dropped depth charges at night, and a lot of guys were crapped out in bed, and the ones that weren't on watch. And when that depth charge would go off at night, that you didn't know what happened. You didn't know what it was until the next day. Well, we had a submarine attack. They dropped just depth charges during the night, and the stern of the ship could come up out of the water. You know, it was so powerful. Those 600-pound depth charges are really powerful.
Wow. So you guys get into Sydney, and did you guys get like a little bit of leave?
We got to leave, like a leave. We had each division had certain times that they could go on board on the beach. We had like Liberty, you know.
Uh-huh. So what did Don do with your Liberty?
Well, we went on board ship and we'd stay overnight. You could stay all night if you wanted to, if you had a place to stay. And we'd wait until morning when the geoduck stands would come around for breakfast, you know. You'd come back to the ship late in the morning.
So did you guys just
you had Liberty. You go to entertainment. You could go to like a
pub or
ballroom or for dance or anything like that. Meet up with people.
Yeah. So, how did so Australians? You obviously met some Aussies there. How was the greeting with them, or did you?
They were really friendly, and they appreciate the fact that the United States was down there, the Navy was down there. They really appreciated that, and of course they had other ships from the British. But the British had Navy out there also.
So who were the troublemakers on Liberty?
Well, guys that like to drink. And we had 15 guys that went over the hill while we were in Sydney. They were having a good time, and they just didn't want to get back on board ship. So when we left Sydney with those guys on land down in Sydney, they went down and got them. And they brought them back to our ship on a seagoing tug. They got them rounded up, and brought them back on a tug.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. they wanted to. Well, they actually were going to. They were going to be deserters, or what they were going to be.
Yeah, But they brought them back on.
Yeah, they got them all rounded up because they didn't have any place to go. They weren't familiar with where they were, you know.
So the MP got them, and
the people that were responsible picked them up, you know.
Gotcha. Give us a few stories from either what while you were stationed, or leaving there, or from operations off of Caledonia. What do you remember?
We'd stay in Noumea until such time as we were called for another operation in a close area. And one time we had we found a couple of they weren't PT boots. They were shoot! See, I can't put my name on everything right away.
You're doing great.
We sunk a couple of gosh, what they call them? But anyway, we picked up the Japanese off that. It was I forget what kind of ship it was. It wasn't a big ship. It was
just a transport, or
no? It was a. Oh gosh, did I write it down? I remember we sunk that ship, and we picked up the Japanese, 14 Japanese, picked them up and brought them back to our ship, put them in the brig. We had a prison on our ship, you know, where anybody out of control, we had put them in the brig.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we brought these Japanese in, and that's one time I got right close and could relate to a Japanese. You know, that's where I didn't get that one flag there. I got that in a prison camp. But anyway, they tried to commit suicide when they were in the brig. But down below, about the second deck below, you got these big girders, you know, they're steel girders, you know, on the ship. And they just bang their head up and they just put their head open and try to kill themselves. The guys that were captured, you know, we brought them back.
So
then we left there. We took those prisoners and took them to Espiritu Santo. They had a what do you call it? Like a prison there, where we brought prisoners and kept them there until such time as they could do something with them.
Wow. So that was the first time you got to see a Japanese soldier.
First time to come in contact with them face to face, you know.
What were your thoughts? Like, you saw, like, that's the enemy. Like, what did you think?
Well, the only thing we could do is treat them. We treated them with respect, actually, and try to be as nice as you could be, you know, under those conditions. But they were in the brig, and they were scared, and they thought they were going to be put away, you know. But just like I say, overnight they try to commit suicide. Well, we brought them to Espirito, where they had a Japanese. It was like it wasn't a prison. It was a controlled area where
Confinement.
Yeah.
Containment.
Yeah, they'd bring them back there, and then you never knew what happened. It was up to somebody else to take care of them and do what they had to do. But they probably kept them until such time as maybe after the war was over, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you guys,
but they were the guys that were on that patrol craft. It was a patrol craft, is what it was.
oh, okay. So they were out just scouting then.
Yeah.
And then you guys caught them red-handed,
Caught them red-handed, and it only took a couple shots to get them.
Yeah.
5-inch.
So
In fact, I got a picture of one of them there for shows where.
well, let me. I'm gonna grab that real quick. You can stay right there. I'll pick it up right here, and then I'll just put it in front of the camera. Which
It's at that one right there. That one there. See, can you see the patrol craft back?
oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
That shows you the shot. Shows the guns firing, and then the patrol craft there. That's the one that was sunk, and that's the one we picked the Japanese up in.
Okay. Well.
See, we had a lieutenant commander that was an artist on board our ship.
Okay.
And he was a correspondent, and he was an artist, and he drew pictures of different actions that we were in. In other words, they didn't have photographs.
Okay.
And he drew that picture.
Can I set this in your lap? And then I'm gonna just kind of show it to the camera here. I'm gonna see if I can't pick that up.
Yeah, that was a
Perfect.
patrol craft. And,
Yep.
we took all those Japanese that was on the crew, and
We'll kind of slide it this way just a little bit across there. There's the. All right, perfect. Yep, I got it. It's on camera.
yeah, okay.
That's awesome. I'm so glad
But that other one there on the right, the tall one, that's the one that was in Santa Cruz.
Oh, okay.
And the same guy took a picture of that. That's when we had the air attack.
Oh,
And we had a near miss. We had a near miss there.
Okay, let's pull that.
It's where the bomb dropped and missed the ship.
Wow, and so but the one explosion on the ship is where that one bomb got you.
Yeah.
There's an airplane.
That was in a fantail. This is one that was a near miss right at the front end of the ship.
Gotcha.
It shows some planes there up there.
Yeah. So that was kind of that's your ship.
Now, if a guy could have had if it could take photographs, he would have had that in the photograph.
Wow.
But he was an artist, and he drew the picture. And we were waiting for new ships to come out all the time, because when we were first out there, we were probably one task force. When we made our landings on Guadalcanal, there was no other ships with us, just what we had in our task force. But later on, ships kept coming out, especially aircraft carriers. Mm-hmm. We had too many aircraft carriers that got sunk out there. The Wasp, the Hornet, the Yorktown. The Enterprise did a heck of a job out there. If you ever hear about the Enterprise, boy, that ship, we were with that Enterprise all the time.
And that was an aircraft carrier?
It was an aircraft carrier. The Enterprise and the Saratoga. The Lexington was a sister ship of the Saratoga, and it was sunk in the Coral Sea. It was a big carrier.
Coral Sea.
Yeah, it was clear down below New Guinea. Below New Guinea and between New Guinea and Australia.
Yeah.
The Coral Sea.
Can I backtrack you real quick to the Battle of Midway? Where were you at?
We were down in the Guadalcanal, Tulagi, and down in the Solomon Islands. We were down there at that time.
Okay.
See, we didn't have any. We couldn't be up there. You can't be every place at once.
Right. I was just curious where you guys during that time frame, because Midway is one of those like buzzwords.
Yeah, but we kept getting people out there, different task forces, and that would relieve us a little more. Mm-hmm. When we first went out there, we were about the only ones out there because it was early in the war.
Yeah. So can you give us like when you guys were in Sydney and the Santa Cruz and stuff like that?
That was in August of 1942. See, Pearl Harbor was in 41, mm-hmm. And then the next year, when we went out to Guadalcanal, it was on August the 7th, 1942.
The fact that you remember those dates.
Oh, I remember the days exactly. And October 26th was when we had that bomb hit. I remember that. Well, I was going to say here, the Pacific campaigns that the San Juan, our ship, participated in were Guadalcanal, Tulaga, Gilbert Islands, Santa Cruz, Marshall Islands, and New Georgia, and that's down there in New Guinea. New Georgia, Rabaul, Kwajalein, Eniwetok, Hollandia, Truk, Palau, Philippines, and Ulithi, the Luzon, Okinawa, and Iwo Jima. We bombarded Iwo Jima too. But see, all that took place 2 and 3 years. You know, it wasn't just 1 year after another.
There was a lot of fighting, and
we were out there all the time. We had to come back to the States once to get new guns. See, when your guns fire so much, there you have.
Shot the rifling out of them, I'm sure.
The rifling was wore out because of gunfire. You know, when the shell goes there, as many shells you go through there, where's that rifling out? And the shell's not doing anything. It's going out there and just flipping around. It doesn't go out. It don't go out like that. It goes out there and just tumbles.
Can I compare it to a knuckleball in baseball?
Right, exactly. That's exactly right. And we had to get some new guns and new rifling in our guns.
So, when you guys went back to the States, did you get a chance to?
I come home. I come home on 10-day leave.
So, what'd you do on your 10-day leave?
I was home. I was enjoying myself at home.
Yeah. So, like, tell us about what do you remember doing?
Family, and go on a picnic and enjoy yourself like you'd be a normal citizen at home.
So
that was really something when you got home. But you had to go back out again. See.
So, what do you remember doing on your 10-day leave?
Oh gosh, I went down to Mohican Lake Park and had a picnic for one thing, and two of the girls that were where I was living, they took me in as a foster parent. They were foster parents for me, and then the 2 girls and the 1 boy. We went down to Mohican and had a picnic. We had a fried chicken and all that, you know.
Oh, fried chicken.
We just enjoyed every day we had, you know.
Now, did you write home, or did you get any mail throughout this process from anybody?
Not while I was home, I didn't.
Well, I mean, like when you were out in sea, were these some of the people that were writing you?
We got regular mail, but it wouldn't come early. It'd be 3 or 4 days, or 3 or 4 weeks, or maybe a month late. But we'd still get mail.
How was it getting mail out there?
Oh, man, we'd have mail calls. Of course, when we'd refuel, we had to refuel at sea a lot. These big tankers, you know, we'd pull up alongside the tanker, throw the hoses over until we get the oil, you know. Ours was fuel oil. And then there'd be another ship on the other side of that tanker fueled at the same time. They'd be fueling while we were fueling. And then when they come out, they'd bring mail out from the States. It would be transferred maybe 2 or 3 times by the time we get it. A lot of our letters were maybe a month or 2 old. But we still got our mail, you know, whenever we could. Sometimes the mail was on board a ship that was sunk, maybe. You know, we wouldn't get any mail. Yeah. Maybe a new tin can that came out had mail on it, and it got in action or something like that, and it got sunk. We had three destroyers that were sunk in a typhoon. Yeah, that was a bad situation too.
So. Some people might not know what a typhoon is.
Oh gosh, it's just heavy storms like tornadoes here. And when out there, it's all water, and your swells are 15 to 20 feet high. You just didn't have a chance to. You just had to plow through them.
Did you guys ever come across bad weather out there?
We had 2 typhoons that we had. In the U.S.S. Pittsburgh, which is a heavy cruiser.
Yeah.
And back as far as number 1 turret. The whole front bow broke off and was gone, and they was plowing through there with the whole front of the ship destroyed.
So did the ship sink?
It just broke off. No, the ship didn't sink, but the bow did. The bow broke right off. I could probably show you some. Oh, this is our ship here, but this. See, on a heavy cruiser,
I'm gonna pull this up kind of like right here.
That's a heavy cruiser. If that's the number 1 turret, this part of the ship broke off because of the typhoon.
I'm gonna set this up like here, and so.
You want me to hold that?
Yeah, hold that up. And so this was like would be the number 1 gun. It's hard to see, but like right down here, And then the bow, he's saying this part of the ship right here,
right back to number one.
Yeah, right back to this number one gun right here. It just fell off.
Yeah. because of the damage of the water, there's much pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have that right there to show everybody. And so
I was going to wait where I got this.
we're gonna bounce real quick back to home. So you had a picnic, and then we'll go right to where you're right here. So you had a picnic, and then
we'd do the normal situation, normal things that you do when you're home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now did they force you to go back to working on the farm?
No, not while I was on Liberty. I was on Liberty because I was there. I had my uniform on, and
Yeah.
Because I was home 10 days. 10 days.
So you had what was your uniform called? Was there a name for it? Like a CB uniform?
Just dress blues.
Dress blues?
And whites. We had whites. Good weather like this, you wear whites.
Okay, and so when
I had what they call oh God, here I go again. Right away, I had it in my hand, and I lost it. No, my dress blues were they were tailor made. Actually, they weren't
government issue.
Government issue. You're right. I had them tailor made in a tailor, and they were a lot better material and everything, and they looked nicer.
And so when you had this uniform on, other people, neighbors,
we'd go to church. I went to church one day, and of course everybody flocked around when they hear this or that, because we'd already been through not Iwo Jima, but Guadalcanal,
and that was a big story back then, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. See, we'd already been through a lot of action, but we just managed to get home. And while I was home, one time my section didn't get liberty, didn't get leave at that time. I had 4 days that I could do whatever I wanted. It was like liberty. But I had a buddy that I lived with, one of the boys that I lived with. He was in the Army. He was a tank commander in Patton's Army over in Germany. But he was at Camp Cook, which is at Lompoc, California. And I left San Francisco and went down to see him just to visit.
Yeah.
And he was they just got through cleaning all their tanks and everything. They're just in a desert. And they said, "Hey, you want to go on a tank ride?" Here, and sailor down there asked me if I want to go on a tank ride. And they got me on that tank, and I drove it myself. They let me drive it. We went through all those deserts down there and got them all banged up and dirty and everything. Brought them back, and they had to clean them all up again. They had to clean them up for inspection. But that was on Liberty, see, while they were still down there. And about 2 weeks later, they were shipped out to Germany.
Wow. Now, do you know if he survived the war?
He survived. He was in Patton's Army.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a tank commander.
Awesome.
Yeah, we had a few stories after we both got home,
Yeah. Did he gave you some stories?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He had a lot of action over there.
Well, I want to try to remember that.
We had a guy here, Clarence Schofield, and he was in a prisoner of war camp. And I used to talk to Clarence a lot. We talked about a lot of different things. In fact, I got a big map over there of Germany, and showed where different troops moved from one place to another,
Yeah.
And I let him see that, and he got a kick out of that because most of the places I had marked and circled, he had been to, and and then he was captured over there, but he got out okay. He was released.
And so, when you guys stopped at Pearl Harbor on the way through,
I saw a lot of the damage that happened at Pearl Harbor. Of course,
what was that like?
Oh my gosh, the Oklahoma was capsized. And of course, the Arizona was sunk. Mm-hmm. And my gunnery officer was in Pearl Harbor the day they attacked Pearl Harbor. He just got married, and he was on the beach. And he wasn't on board ship, but he was a gunnery officer on the Oklahoma. And the Oklahoma was sunk by Japanese at Pearl Harbor. But he didn't get it because he was on the beach. He just got married. And he was on the beach. I mean, he was in a...
Do you remember his name?
Captain Carpenter. He was my gunnery officer.
I mean, in your turret, do you recall not shooting down airplanes? Were you guys hitting?
We didn't know what we were hitting, but we got credit later on. I think we got credit for 25 or 30 planes in that one skirmish.
On the Utanok?
In the Santa Cruz.
Oh, Santa Cruz.
Yeah. But the hot case chutes were open. They're always open when you're firing, because the hot cases would go out there on deck. The firemen, they'd go out on deck.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we'd get water coming through those hot case chutes, coming inside,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody was thinking, "Oh God, there it comes! We're going under," because of the water coming in.
Yeah.
You didn't know. You didn't know. You just had to keep doing what you were doing until the action settled down. Then you know where you were. You know what kind of what kind of shape you're in.
So, when you guys got to Iwo Jima, and you guys were bombarded?
We just bombarded on the landings when they landed.
What was that like? Do you recall like when the Mount Suribachi? Did you guys fire on Mount Suribachi at all?
No, that where they landed was way a long distance from Suribachi.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I can't tell it, but suppose this is Iwo Jima. You landed over here. Suribachi was way up here,
Mm-hmm.
and they had all kinds of caves, and it was all black ash sand,
Mm-hmm.
and they had bunkers all over the place. But our guys used a lot of flamethrowers, but they lost a lot of guys up at Iwo.
Did you guys receive any like wounded troops off there at all, or were you just pretty much?
Well, it was taken care of by whoever was responsible for removing the wounded. We didn't do that because our job was away from that.
Now, during that campaign, did you guys get? Was there any kamikazes or any?
Not up there. We didn't have any air attacks at Iwo Jima at all.
So
We were lucky in that respect.
Yeah.
But the guys on land, they had a misery. It was misery. The Marines, First and Second Marine Division, boy, they took a beating. And then they finally had to work their way through all these caves and everything, and hand-to-hand fighting until they got up to Suribachi. And then these guys, that's when they had that picture taken with the flag. When they it took a while to get there, but they got there. But life didn't mean a thing. If you were storming in there, your life was nothing. You could have lost right now. You could have lost 2 or 3 steps and you'd be on.
Mm-hmm.
You just didn't have a chance. Anybody that survived Iwo Jima was lucky.
I've got 2 of them I hope to interview.
I mean,
yeah.
It's just like I said before when they interviewed me once before. I said, regardless of how rough it was for me at different times, it wasn't near as bad as it was for these guys in Marines and land forces. Those guys you really appreciate.
And then from how long after Okinawa did you guys get into Japan?
Well, it was quite a while before the Japs realized the war was practically over.
Mm-hmm.
We went up to a couple of small islands, Shima. That's where Ernie Pyle got killed. I was with Ernie Pyle in Indianapolis. When I went home on leave one time, I come back and we stopped at Indianapolis and picked up some people, and Ernie Pyle was one of them. In fact, he sat in a seat right next to me. And Ernie was stationed up at Shima. He got hit by a sniper bullet. He got killed up there.
Now the war was over then,
I
wasn't it?
remember seeing him and talking to him.
So he was a local guy, Ernie Pyle.
Ernie Pyle, he was a correspondent, and he was I don't know what he was exactly. He was like any of these guys that go over as correspondents.
Yeah, war correspondent.
He was a correspondent.
And so he was from Indianapolis or local?
Well, that's where we picked him up in Indianapolis. I don't know where Ernie originally was from, but see, he had been over there, and he'd come back, and he was on his way back over the Pacific, and he was stationed up at Shima, which is north of Iwo Jima, and then he got hit right in the helmet.
Wow. And then
You ever heard of Major Greg Boyington? Marine ace.
A pilot?
He was a pilot, a Marine pilot.
Yeah, Pappy. They call him Pappy.
Pappy, yeah. He was supposed to have been killed, and he was awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously. But he was in that prison camp we evacuated. He was still alive. They just took for granted he was gone, you know. But he was in that prison camp that we evacuated, a prisoner of war.
Wow.
And we evacuated General Wainwright up at Sendai, Japan. He was in a copper mine. He was a prisoner of war, and he was in a copper mine. He had to work in a copper mine. He was skin and bones.
So the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah.
And then did you get a chance to see from?
We were down. We were probably off the coast of Iwo Jima at that time. Probably what 2, 3, 4 hour miles away.
Now, when you got on land, though, did you get to visit those places or see them at all?
No, never. I got on board. I got on shore in Tokyo. That's the only Japanese location that I've been to. I went on board in Tokyo. We had liberty there. We visited different places, you know. So the war was over at that time.
So when you guys were there and running around, there was obviously Japanese
civilians.
civilians.
All citizens out on the street. They look at you. They were just kind of curious, all of them.
So
the little kids and stuff like that, you know.
So did you have any interactions with any? Were they frightened? I mean, what was the?
They looked scared all the time, and they just looked like, what's next, you know? And July the 12th, 1943, we lost 2 men overboard during a heavy storm, and one of them was from Mansfield. Osborne was his name. He was washed down the side, and number 5 gun mount. He had a bar bed underneath the turret, all steel enclosed, and there's an opening between there and the life raft or the life lines, the lifeline on the. So you had different posts along there, and they had a lifeline. So if anybody did get washed over, they could hit that. Mm-hmm. They could hit that. But this one between there and the bar bed on that turret, he was washed down the side, and when he hit that, probably knocked him out. And then the other guy that was with him that washed him over the side. We spent a lot of time trying to locate him. You know, we threw over metal life rafts. You know, fired him over so they could maybe get to him. But it was awful rough that day, and we could have spent a whole lot of time there because we were in dangerous waters at that time. Mm-hmm. So they had to. They were just gone. They were just.
What was
gone.
the guy from Mansfield?
His name was Osborne.
Osborne.
Albert Osborne.
Albert Osborne.
He graduated in 1943, I think.
What school?
Mansfield Senior. Yeah. I'll tell you why I had this. I didn't do this just lately. I've had this for a while. They had a Veterans Day here once a month, mm-hmm. And Angela had me do a presentation with some experiences, and I had to write this stuff down because I couldn't remember everything, and I had to give a little talk. But there was only about 4 or 5 guys showed up, so it didn't matter, I guess. We survived 2 typhoons. One of them off the coast of Luzon in December of 1944, managed to come back upright after a severe list to starboard. I thought we was going to go over, you know, because it was so bad. We could look up and see the waves, and you go down and look up. There were the big waves. My God! Of course, I wasn't on top side or anything. It was down the mess hall, and they didn't have anything dogged down. They had the tables and everything. Those tables would go one way to the bulkhead. When they go the other way to the bulkhead, all the tables in the cafeteria. Mm-hmm. Oh. The 3 destroyers were lost in the first typhoon, the Hull, Spence, and the Monaghan, and 3 escort carriers suffered severe damage, the Cowpens, the Monterey, and the San Jacinto, and the heavy cruiser Pittsburgh lost its bow, that's the one I was telling you about, as far back as the number 1 turret. In the second typhoon, which was in June of 45 near Formosa, during my time on the San Juan, we had 4 different captains. who were awarded separately the Silver Star, the Bronze Star, Legion of Merit, and the Navy Commendation Medal while serving in the 1st Fleet, and the 3rd Fleet, and the 5th Fleet. Under Admiral Mark Betcher and Admiral Bull Halsey and Admiral Chester Nimitz. Our awards that were received during the time of service, 3 years, 10 months in the Pacific, were the Asiatic Pacific Medal with 13 battle stars, Philippine Independence Medal, the Guadalcanal, Tulagi, Solomon Island Liberation Medal with 2 battle stars, Occupation and Service with a Medal of an Asiatic Clip, and a Good Conduct Medal and a Victory Medal. I didn't get a Purple Heart because I got my finger caught in a hoist once, and that's about it. We steamed 400,000 miles. This ship went 400,000 miles and used over 23 million gallons of fuel.
Whoa.
And 17,500 hours underway.
17,500 hours.
Yeah, underway. And gallons of water distilled, over 35 million gallons. Distilled water, so we could drink and take showers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Enough water, enough drinking water to furnish the entire United States for a day. Enough drinking water to furnish the whole United States in one day.
Wow.
That's pretty much